Meeting. My name is Tom Schwarzkopf. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Let's start by the invocation and the Pledge of Allegiance. If you would please stand and bow your head with me. Our Heavenly Father, we want to thank you for bringing us all here in good health. I'm going to ask that you give us all wisdom today and give us awareness of the beauty of the world you've given us and the people that you've brought into our life. Lord, give us the awareness that we are in your presence and we are in the presence of the things that you've given us, the things that we don't give you enough thanks for every day, but we acknowledge it today. Lord, teach us humility, teach us patience, teach us joy and happiness, and most especially, teach us to love one another the way you want us to love. We ask these things, and in your Son's name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic
for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. All right. Thank you. Okay. Without discussion, I'm going to move item number 15 and item 16 up to next. Item 15 is the supplemental agenda in English and Spanish to canvass the returns of the director's election held on May 4th and adopt an order declaring the results of the director's election. Brian, do you want to take over from here?
Sure, yeah. We'll go ahead and move to the supplemental. So we do have the final results of the election, the official results from Montgomery County. We had 4 candidates, as you know, 2 seats were up for election. I'll go through and read the official results from the county. George Newman, 153 votes. Deidre Eklund, 98 votes. Wendy Westing, 296 votes. Susanna Cronin, 315 votes. So our 2 top vote getters are Wendy Westing, 296 votes. Susanna Cronin, 315 votes. So we do need to canvass those results and adopt the order in connection with the canvass.
Okay, I need a motion to certify.
I'll make a motion to certify.
A second.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Okay, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion passes.
Good.
Item number 16 is now item number 4. If you want to take that.
Yes, sir. 16 is to accept the qualification statements, bonds, oaths of office, affidavits of current director, and elections not to disclose certain information for newly elected directors. First step, 2-step process. First step here is to conduct the oath of office for the newly elected directors. Once I've completed their administered their oath, then the current board needs to take action on item 16 to accept the documents on item 16. Once we take action on item 16, the newly elected directors will be seated to be able to participate in the remainder of the meeting.
All right.
We'll go first.
Can we get someone to take pictures?
Yeah.
We can help.
Okay.
We'll get them to Shelley.
Everybody's got a camera in there
Yeah.
these days.
Yeah, we thought you.
Do you want us to use your?
All right, so raise your right hand, and then I'm going to read through the oath. If you agree, say I do. Okay. You, Susanna Cronin, solemnly swear or affirm that you'll faithfully execute the duties of the office of Director of Montgomery County Mud number 46, state of Texas, and to the best of your ability, preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution and laws of the United States and this state, so help you God.
Twice. It's okay. Don't worry about it. Mispronounce it. Everybody does. I will. That.
All right, raise your right hand. Do you, Wendy Weinstein, solemnly swear or affirm that you'll faithfully execute the duties of the office of Director of Montgomery County Mud 46 in the state of Texas, and to the best of your ability, preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution and laws of the United States and this state, so help you God. Congratulations.
All right.
All right, we are ready to take action on item number 16.
Can we go back and do item number 3? Start there, or do you want to?
I think, yeah, we're ready to,
Let's go back to item number 3 and go through that, and then we'll do item 17 in sequence. Do you have anything?
We go, right?
All right.
yeah, no, the current directors need to
Wait a
take
minute.
action on 16.
So, all right, let's do item number,
Or y'all with the escape to the gallery.
current board is not, item number 16, okay, acceptance of qualification statements, bonds, oath of office.
Do you want to review the minutes since the minutes affect them?
No, we're
No?
doing 16 now.
Okay,
Discretion of the president.
okay.
Not to disclose certain information for newly elected directors.
Need a vote on 16.
Okay, I need a motion.
I'll make the motion.
All right, in a second.
Second.
All right.
What's the motion for?
Acceptance of the qualification statements, bonds, oath of office, affidavits, current directors and elections not to disclose certain information for newly elected directors. All right. That's for the new ones. Yes. All right. All those in favor? Say aye. Okay, those opposed? All right. Item number 16 is passed. Before you leave, I want to say to George and to Deidre, it's been a pleasure working with you for the last 2 years. I've learned a lot from the two of you. Your knowledge of water, both the freshwater and wastewater, is impressive. On my behalf, I'd like to present you with a gift card. This is a $100 gift card to the Republic Grill, which is in Sterling Ridge, which is
Thank you.
kind of personal to me and close to your homes.
Lovely.
So enjoy that.
Oh, meeting there after the meeting?
Why, yes, we are, and you're treating.
You got the cards.
Okay, and Eric would like to also present you with an award.
Yes, also on behalf of the board and Woodlands Water Agency, I'd like to offer both of these plaques for your service, both to George and to Deidre. I'd like to read, they both read the same, but our sincere thank you and appreciation for exceptional leadership and dedicated service to Monroe County Municipal Utility District number 46. George, I believe, started in May of 2016. And Deidre is November of 2020. So thank you very much for your service.
Take care. That's sweet.
Hey, George.
Hey,
Take care.
see you later.
Eva, take care.
Take care.
Let me get this. George, here.
Let's see.
This back.
Do one more public comment.
Susanna.
Do you want to public comment anymore?
All right, thank you. Item number 3 on the agenda, received comments from the public. I don't have anyone who's signed up. All right. Do we have any adjustments?
No, sir. No adjustments for you this month.
Okay, item 5 through 8, the consent agenda. Any objections? I need a motion to approve the consent agenda.
And I'd motion to approve the consent agenda.
All right.
I'll second.
All right. Any discussion? All right. All those in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Okay, moving along. Item number 9.
We did have somebody who wanted to make a
You
comment.
should have sign-in sheet.
I do, but I've only got 2 check marks. And I've talked to both of them and they said,
This lady black.
oh, my apologies.
Congratulations to each of you for winning, or those that have been serving, certainly appreciate it. I'm Stacy Wingen. I've lived in Sterling Ridge now for 22 years. And by way of background, I've had 15 years in the water treatment business and 17 years in oil and gas and project management, operations and procurement. And I did listen to the last trustee meetings, and I hope that all of you come here with an open mind. And I know that's some of the things that were on the ballots to be contested, had certain opinions already attached to them, but I hope that everyone is coming here to listen to what the numbers really state and what is the benefit and the really for the entire community of the Woodlands as well as its citizens. You know, the residents of the Woodlands expect high levels of service from its governing bodies, including the MUD. And the Woodlands has had an environmental and conservative culture, conservation culture. The changes in service level did increase costs because of maintenance or downtime or restrictions, further restrictions on water usage or treatment because of maintenance issues are not consistent with what the Woodlands expectations would be. I reviewed the cost and sensitivity analysis performed by the consultant, and it is certainly in line with what my past experiences have been. And I just don't think that when you look at the gravitation of cost over the length of time, whether you're delaying it 18 months to 5 years or over 5 years, that is in the best interest for the Woodlands. Some additional considerations is that delaying it would also, you've got other projects that coordinate with this particular project. If you're putting in a new plant, it would require some rework of all of the automated systems you're putting in, the data collections programming that's underway as well, which again costs more money as we go forward. Not to mention the increased maintenance that would go along with this requires increased qualified personnel in order to perform the work. And I can already see that we continue to add the staff to manage the entire municipality. Some considerations that were not part of the net present values are really something that's recently just occurred, and that's with the newly announced tariffs with China for steel and aluminum, which are going to also impact all the electrical components and further increase replacement costs, and also perhaps have some scarcity of being able to obtain the products you need in order to repair some of our equipment. So I thank you for your time, but I urge you to move forward with replacement and not just consider just repairing and patching as we go forward. I don't think you would do it with your car. I don't know why we would do it with the water system. Thank you.
Thank you, Stacy. Anyone else, real quick? All right. Thank you. All right, I'm going to move on to item number 9. I received the regular monthly SJRA Woodlands Division report, including the updates on operations, projects, and public outreach.
I know you have a busy agenda, a lot of discussion. I'm going to hit the highlights. If you have any questions, just let me know. So our report's in your packet on page 16, runs through page 36. This is generally a recap, a summary, if you will, of the day-to-day operations of the plant, water blending, project status, preventative maintenance, stuff like that that goes through. So in the month of April, because this report's always a month long, in the month of April, there was nothing out of the ordinary. There was no violations, nothing to occur that really worthy of too much conversation unless you have questions on it. One thing I did want to bring up that you'll see in next month's report is that the storm that came through a couple weeks ago, wastewater plant 1 had 8 inches of rain in 9 hours. The average daily flow is about 3.2 to 3.4 million gallons a day. With that 8 inches of rain, the instantaneous flow went up to 32 million gallons. And that lasted for about 12 hours before it started to dip down from there. So just wanted to let y'all know that was the only impact at that wastewater plant. So we'll have 2 violations, one for violating 18 million gallons a day, then one for going 40% above that, about 25.2 million gallons a day. At this point, no fines are expected from that, but the TCQ does whatever the TCQ does.
Yeah.
Quantity was high, quality was fine. That's all I have unless you have any questions.
You were just recently honored for the Allison Award. Is that correct?
I was.
Could you tell us about that?
So, it's something I've done a little bit about. So Cindy L. Allison was the county, is Corpus Christi Director of Public Works.
Yes, he was Ed and I may have had something to do with his, acknowledgement here on this. We got to write a write-up. So as part of the Water Environment Association of Texas, so that's called WEET, which is a subsidiary of a national organization called WEF, the Water Environment Federation. I am and have been on the board at the state level for WEET. Sydney Allison Award is one of the biggest and most prestigious in the state for a wastewater operator. So Sydney Allison was the wastewater lead in Corpus Christi through the 70s and the 80s. And he was acknowledged across the state as a leader in helping to develop conventional treatment and really how we kind of handle things across the state with TCQ and writing up some of the AWWA standards that go along with it. And so with that, every year we does recognize somebody who is a class level operator across the state. And Chris got that award this year. So we're very happy to have him at the SRA.
So somehow my name got put on somebody else's application.
You're a very humble man,
Congratulations.
and we're glad to have you.
Any questions I can answer? If not, we're glad.
But just a quick question. If you go back into history of the mixture of the blend between groundwater and surface water, was the surface water ever at 65%?
Yes, sir. And the initial onset of it was about 80% surface water, 20% ground. And then the ideal mixture at that point, I think that was in 2016 into 2017 calendar year based. Then it hit 65% and then it went down from there.
Down from there. And the reason for that in the beginning?
In the beginning, why it was so high
Right.
was because Lone Star still had the rules that required the reduction overall. So the more the surface water that could be produced, the overall credit for all GRP participants, so we could actually meet the regulations. Another reason for the reduction, well, one reason for the reduction is the rules went away.
Right.
Second reason for the reduction is in the woodlands, since you had the blend of the ratios of groundwater, surface water coming in, above 50%, you start having a disinfection byproduct issue, TTHMs. And I think that occurred roughly 2019, 2020. And so there was public notices put out and everything else. So the ideal blend without causing any health concerns is 50-50.
Okay, thanks.
Then I have a question, just for the residents who are gonna watch this meeting later, could you please explain what TTHMs is?
Total trihalomethanes. So it's a known carcinogenic in California. You can look it up and see there's a lot of different ways to do it, but one study said you had to drink 100 gallons of water with 100 milligrams per liter for like a year or something to have any health effects.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
Anytime.
All right, item number 10, receive information from the SDRA and Freeze Nichols regarding partial rehab net present value.
Good evening, everybody. First off, Dan Hildebrand, Technical Services Department Manager with SDRA. So Wendy and Susanna, congrats on joining the MUD. Looking forward to working with y'all. So the item tonight, I'm also going to have, we have a number of folks here with Esther A, but someone else I want to introduce is David Munn. He's a project manager with Friesen Nichols, who has been working with us for the past 2.5 years on the whole wastewater strategic planning efforts. So tonight is one very small piece of that. There is a lot of information out there, a lot of, we're going to spend some time to get y'all up to speed. We're going to be providing a flash drive with 3+ years of documents. David knows very well, he got the hard copy version. So tonight we're going to present on a small piece that came up at the April, started at the March meetings when we presented the 10-year project plans. So within those project plans, we touched on the project for the wastewater treatment facility replacement of wastewater treatment facility #1. There's a couple slides regarding what would occur if there was a delay in that project. Current called baseline schedule is to complete construction in 2030. So that is an assumption that goes into this net present value analysis. So 2030 is the current completion of construction, switching over and bringing the new plant online. We took one of the big questions that came up at that meeting was regarding a slide that said, all right, well, what if this is delayed 18 months? What if this project's delayed 3 years? The 18 months is not just something arbitrary we threw out. That was tied back to some discussion amongst the various MUDs of how do we fund this? Would we potentially go through tax rates and a rollback election, which the soonest would be like 18 months, November 2025. So that's where the 18 months came from. And then the greater than 18 months, 3 years was just another data point that we wanted y'all to have. So within that presentation back in March, there was a slide that showed 2 columns of infrastructure that we felt would need to be rehabbed or replaced if there was such delay. So that's the other key component that goes back to assumptions within this. So fast forward to the April trustee meeting, there was discussion there regarding, well, can you quantify the costs associated with these items? That was a common question we got. And then, can you provide us some information for us to understand, is it advantageous to do these projects and delay the project? Or is it advantageous to move forward as soon as possible with replacement of the facility? So what we did is, well, first off, what the trustees authorized in April was $50,000 for Friesen Nichols to go back and do this net present value analysis, which this is the work product in your packets on page 37 through 39. So I'm going to speak first on page 37. You'll see a table. It has 14 items and it rolls into page 38. So for the total, there's 24 items. Those 24 items correspond directly with the slide that was presented in March regarding the infrastructure that would need to be addressed in some manner, rehab, replaced, if there was such delays with the overall replacement of the facility. So on the table here, there's 2 columns with cost. Say the third column in 18 months. So that is if there's an 18-month delay, the items that show a cost would be items that we would want to address if we knew there was an 18-month delay on the overall replacement of the facility. These are high level, you could call them almost partial cost estimates. There is some other, we didn't go down into every nut and bolt on this. These are very high level. Then the second column of cost is greater than 18 months. So all the items that have a cost associated in that column would be projects that we would be looking to do if we knew there was going to be a delay of greater than 18 months on the completion of construction of the new facility. Then the last 2 columns, those are just details for your information on the sources of those costs and where they came from to where Friesen Nichols came up with those cost estimates.
In the blue column,
Yes.
let's say take one, the blue highlighted column. Basically, the difference between 18 months and greater than 18 months, or I guess 3 years, is that's not, that you're basically saying it's going up, 80-some thousand in price.
On the first one.
Okay, that's the increase for 3 or for another 18 months. Okay.
Bottom line, on page 38, there's two total rehab cost estimates. The first column, approximately 8.5 million, second column, 33.298. So remember those costs because those are going to transition into a graph that is shown on page 39. Orienting you with the graph, the x-axis is tied to the number of years the full replacement of the wastewater treatment facility would be delayed. So that is the assumption going back to that baseline schedule of completion in 2030. So if there's a 1.5 year delay, 18 months, that would be the first dot on the graph. So there's two red diamonds. Those correspond with that 8 million and the 33 million of the table. The y-axis just cost in millions. So what's the green line? The green line is essentially kind of the break point, tipping point, kind of the rehab cost threshold of if that red diamond landed on that green line, it would be essentially like a neutral decision on if you just continue to expend funds on rehab versus expending funds towards replacing the new facility. If those red dots were to the right of the green line, to the right or to below the green line, that would be in a position to where it would be advantageous and economically favorable to move forward with the replacement and rehab of those items listed in the table. So where we're at though, with the dots above and to the left of the line, that is showing that it is not economically favorable to continue delaying the replacement of that facility. And it would be advantageous to move forward with further design construction of the new wastewater treatment facility. We also, you'll see down here, there'll be some notes on the assumptions regarding escalation factors, bond interest rates, essentially the variables that go into doing a net present value analysis. If you got specific questions on those, I'm going to throw it back here to David. But I do want to let you know, we did a sensitivity analysis on this. We did go through and, just kind of tweak escalation. All right, what would it look like if there was a 7% or looking at the bond interest rate, the discount rates, and with kind of the min and max scenarios that we thought were even viable, both those red dots were still left of that line. So of the scenarios we came up with on the very high and the very low of all those variables and assumptions, it was still the same outcome and the same essentially recommendation to move forward with replacement. So I'll pause there if you got questions. I think we got a team here that can help.
Dan, just for clarification, could you define the difference between replacement and rehab?
So when I'm saying replacement, in this sense, it's going to be replacement of all the infrastructure that is associated with wastewater treatment facility one. So the assumption that one of the assumptions that goes into this green line is the analysis that we've been doing phase 1, phase 2 of the master plan. And some of y'all may recall that $289 million number to build a 7 million gallon a day MBR treatment facility adjacent to the existing one to replace what's there. So that is the assumption of in the green line to where that is what you would be delaying and pushing out to future years. So when I'm talking about replacement, that's really the replacement.
Replacing but with the membrane facility
That is the current assumption that goes into this.
versus a rehab, which is just rehabbing the current facility.
Rehabbing or maintaining.
Yeah, and
So
in sense, you're replacing some components in this table, but what happens is you're deferring that full replacement of the plant only by a short period of time. To a replacement of some of these, say if you build a whole new aeration basin, yeah, you might have another 50 years of that concrete or the mechanical items that are listed here. Typically it's a 20-year life expectancy on pumps, motors, electrical. But essentially you can only defer that new replacement so long. So what some have referred to these costs, that 8 million and the 33 million is essentially going to become like a sunk cost when you ultimately replace that plant. You're not going to get the full value of the items on this chart.
Right.
because you do ultimately have to replace that facility.
I'm Connie Curtis. I'm the Director of Technical and Operational Services at the River Authority. So I'm over engineering, construction, GIS, SCADA, INC, and IT. So they gave me a lot of scary things. But I also work very closely with Dan and have on this. So just for clarification, the basic assumption going into this was, you know, we've heard and I think we talked about the supplemental agreement, right? That's something that we're going to continue to talk about. The question came up with the supplemental agreement of what happens if we have to wait till November? So Dan said that. And that's where this came from. This isn't a if then. Are we going to replace or are we not? The assumption in this is that we're moving forward with the replacement. It's what happens if we delay by 18 months to November of 2025 for a tax rollback election. And so if we waited 18 months, what would happen? We would need to do that left column, right? And that's $8.5 million. That $8.5 million would be, as Dan mentioned, a sunk cost. We would have to go build that infrastructure and then take it out in 3 or 4 years when the new plant came online. So we don't recommend doing that. It doesn't make feasible economic sense to do so. So our recommendation in summary is let's move forward. And that's what the supplemental agreement will help us do, is to keep the preliminary design moving.
Question. Remind all of us, the funding for this, how is that going to be handled?
So the first tranche, let's call it that, is a request for $40 million. And SRA is going to be selling bonds for that $40 million.
You're going to be selling bonds, or we're going to be selling bonds?
We will be selling bonds.
And they'll be revenue bonds, because that's the only kind you can have, right?
That's correct.
Okay.
Correct. So they will be bonds that I think of the $40 million, 32 is for the design component of it all. And then there's some CAPI in there for you all. And then there's the origination fees.
You said 30 was for design?
32, I believe.
Approximately 32.
Approximately 32, yes. And so that's what the first phase is. How it goes forward from there somewhat depends on how you all plan to fund things going forward. And so that's some of the conversations that the MUDs have had. But one of the options is for us to continue to sell the bonds.
Okay.
Right?
Thank you.
And I think that is how we have done it with the 2017 Water Development Board bonds that we sold. But up to this point, that is something that is still out there. So by us going ahead and moving forward with the supplemental agreement for $40 million, we're not forcing the MUDs to make a decision today on how y'all choose to fund the remaining components and then the remaining pieces. Additionally, one thing I would want to note is we wouldn't necessarily go 40 million and then the remaining, let's just call it 250, right? It would potentially be in other tranches as the construction moves forward. So it wouldn't just be 40 and then 250. There would be other components that we would bring in pieces. Does that make sense?
It makes sense, and
Okay.
you've answered my question. Thank you, Connie.
Hey, and I just want everyone to recognize today is Connie's birthday.
Hey.
She's 17. One more year and she'll be legal to drink.
I think that's 21.
Even in Texas.
So if y'all have more questions, I mean, obviously, as Dan noted, we're gonna have orientations and everything for the two. We'll have tours of the plant if you want to see them. So we'll get to spend plenty of time together, and feel free to reach out to us. Eric has got our information. We're happy to chat.
Thank you.
Thank you, Connie. Thank you, Dan.
I actually do have a question since I'm new here. Some of the residents were asking me why a membrane bioreactor and what other type of wastewater treatment facilities were considered. Like, so what's the current one that we have? What are other alternatives? Because I understand that this is a newer technology that we're implementing. So my first question is, what were the other ones that were considered, and why is this one going to process wastewater better than the other alternatives?
On top of that, what is the life expectancy of the newest one?
Okay. So this is definitely something we're going to hit on in orientation. From a real quick, just high level, in phase 1 of the study, which you'll have on the USB, there were 20 different alternatives considered. And it was rehab replacement of the existing facility. And then there was also conventional treatment, which is what we have today, which is aeration basins and clarifiers. And we actually utilize chlorine on the downstream end as the disinfectant and all of that. So that's a typical, we're gonna call that old school version. So what you've heard about is the membrane. And that was selected because of a smaller footprint. Also, it gives higher quality effluent for discharge to the environment. But overall, that was a decision that was made at the end of phase one of the alternatives analysis. And so we've been there, but there has been, just for full clarification, there has been conversations with other buds about considering potentially bringing back an idea of bringing conventional back and potentially comparing. We already know we're going to do land acquisition. That would be required for either option. And so moving forward with comparing truly what it would look like for the conventional train to go kind of in the same area instead of membrane. And so what would that look like? So we're having conversations. If that's something that y'all are interested in, we're having conversations with buds on that so we can continue to have discussions on that.
And I think, Wendy, to your question on what's the lifespan. Yeah, it's just if we build a new plant, that doesn't mean we're good till the end of time. So, you know, generally in the wastewater industry, you know, when you're dealing with structural components and concrete and all that, it's around 50 years. And in between there, you know, if we were to go a membrane plant, you're going to have membrane replacement, significant, or the replacement type things come up throughout. On the mechanical side, like I mentioned, mechanical being around 20 years, but major structural components is usually around.
So to clarify, the existing is 50 years old, I assume?
Correct.
Okay. And the replacement would also be life expectancy of 50 years, nothing more.
Not at this time.
Okay. Sad. Technology, I would think would be longer. Okay.
Particularly on conventional, when you're talking about that, it is steel and concrete. And the lifespan of structural steel and concrete in the corrosive environment of sewer is about 50 years. And then from there, you know, the membranes, we say it's newer technology. It's been around for 20 years or so. So in America, it's been in Europe for longer, but you know, from that perspective, it's something that, as Dan noted, you know, you're gonna have to replace components, the membranes themselves every 10 to 15 years. But you know, some of that may last a little longer, but 50 is really where we are. David, did I misspeak on that?
The only thing I would add is in any process mechanical system, whether it's membrane, whether it is pumps, a 20-year replacement cycle is pretty consistent.
What year was that plant built?
Early 70s.
74.
74? Okay.
What parts of the plant were built in 70?
Influent, lift station, aeration basin 1, aeration basin 2, and some of the digesters, and then underground piping, parts of the electrical system.
So it's more than 50 years old.
Bit more. Yeah. I had it.
It's 50 years now. And you
Right now.
you
So by the time
want-
we get it replaced, it'll be 55.
55 years. Okay.
Okay, so we can answer other questions. We got lots. I know y'all got a lot on your agenda.
I was like, hey, I probably have some more questions, but I'll direct them to Eric.
Okay.
And that way, we can
Thank you.
be more
Okay,
efficient.
yeah, absolutely. Happy to answer your questions.
Thank you.
Okay.
Back
We,
to the-
we are going to strike item 11 from the agenda. And the next item is 12. And we're going to receive and discuss the draft SJR Woodlands Division budget. And
Come up here and give you some highlights. While she's getting set up, I mean, you're gonna cover the budget schedule. All year.
So my name is Haley Lawhine. I'm in the Natick County Department at SDRA for those that haven't met me, met everybody else. So I have the budget, the Woodlands Division budget for y'all today. So as Chris mentioned, the calendar for y'all. We're here in May to present it. We come back in June for questions. And then in July, we ask for the vote at the MUD level. The director trustee had a vote at the trustees meeting. And our board votes in August after the trustees vote. So just a little calendar. In the interest of time, I'll hit the highlights in here, which is really the first two slides on the rates that we're proposing. I can go through the whole presentation, if you do so, or if you have questions, I can answer those. Otherwise, we'll be back in June. In your packet, you have the presentation, less notes on it, but the presentation is there, and then behind the presentation, you have the draft budget, so this is our full budget with all the things. So up first, there are 3 rates that the Woodlands Division charges the MUDs. The first 2 rates are on this first slide. It's the wholesale water and the wholesale wastewater rate. We are proposing a decrease to the wholesale water rate, down 5 cents, which is 2%, to $2.73 per 1,000 gallons of wholesale water. On the wholesale wastewater side, we're proposing to keep the rate the same as this past year, so we'll keep it at $5.65 per 1,000 gallons for FY25.
The GRP fee, I understand that's because of population increase. Is that
Due to demand
increase, but probably because of people aren't drinking more water, there are more people moving into the
I'd imagine so.
coverage area, yeah. Do you project that increase in, that decrease in GRP fees to continue, is assuming the population continues to move down at a rate?
Well, have you covered the GRP rate yet?
Yeah.
Okay.
If we could get there, then I'll add on to it.
Okay.
So the next slide is the third rate we have, which is part of the rate that David's talking about. So this rate is kind of got some different names. So you've probably heard blended rate or pass-through rate or the surface water conversion. I think the rate that's on y'all's bill is or what it's named on y'all's bill is the surface water conversion rate. So this is the third rate, which is that pass-through. And we are proposing to decrease this from $3.20 to $2.97. So that's a big drop in the GRP pass-through rate there. One thing to note on this is the review committee for GRP has not seen this yet, so it is subject to change. Not expected, but just throwing that out there that you are getting a sneak peek before the committee for GRP sees it.
And on that item, so Monday is when I'm going to present the GRP budget to the GRP review committee. And when I do that, we're also just before the budget going to present the 5-10-year rate study, GRP rate study that's going to project forward. So we can be extremely conservative and say there's going to be no demand increase, and then you'll be able to see what the rates do. But we also have another less conservative, I guess, that shows 1.5% demand increase per year and what the rates do. Seeing that I have not presented to the GRP review committee, I'm fine showing the rates. Just have a concern presenting that information before the elected body has seen it. So live stream Monday, 11:30 a.m. Tune in, you can get it then.
That's the highlights of our budget. I'm happy to keep going if y'all want.
So you're hiring lobbyists this year, and you did last year as well. Do you have a plan for how to use those?
So you'll notice in the budget that the lobbyist is increasing more significantly, and that's not because we're paying more per month. It's because last year we had budgeted for a partial contract year, and then we elected to renew that contract. But we do have plans. They are currently working for us, and they're working on getting us in the state level and at the federal level to get funding for projects and to help us out there. Eric and so in here that they have been.
But primarily future projects and litigation? Nothing with litigation?
No, recall Bear Panther Dam, the $3.6 million, $3.8 million that we received from Crenshaw from the federal government. That was through this lobbyist, as well as about 1.8, I think, for the Citizen for rehabilitation. That too was also as a part of this. So right now, those are both federal funding, but we are working with them to identify both federal and state funding for any project that we have. Obviously, we have a lot of things going on, so any money that we can find, drainage, water, or sewer, that's what we're working with them. We have a call, I think twice a month, every other week, to get updates on their work. So they're actively working on our behalf.
We're also working with them on trying to get language modification in some of the bills to allow a community like the Woodlands to receive federal funds. Right now, are somewhat precluded because you don't meet the low to moderate income requirements. And also, there are no enforcement or administrative orders against us for the Woodlands. And so we're trying to manage some of the language.
We're not trouble.
Part of the other part of that language too is at the federal level, there's not a very good definition for what's called a special district.
Right.
And so we've worked with them to modify that language to a point that would be acceptable at a federal level.
I understand, yeah.
So that we can get that, so that we can get the potential applications or the potential funding to be eligible as a special district. Because a lot of that funding, because it's not defined very, very well, they don't know what we are. When I say special district.
Understood, yeah.
Is that fair?
Yeah. And then the other question you had on litigation, there's money in the GRP budget, not in the Woodlands Division budget.
Okay. Very good. Thank you. Thank you. Look forward to it. All right, do you have an update on the Bear Branch project?
You're getting a full group of folks from SGRA today. My name is Ed Shackelford. I'm Director of Operations, which oversees the Woodlands Division. Thank you. The GRP Division, the Highlands Division, the Conroe Division, and also Flood Management. And 3 of those divisions have projects with you all. So, for example, Bear Branch is a subset under the Lake Conroe Division. Like Bear Branch budget is funded by 5 MUDs here in the Woodlands, MUD 7, MUD 46, 47, 60, and 67. And there are a couple of projects that we'll talk about on Bear Branch. One is the Bear Branch Dam, which there was not a groundbreaking, but a press release and a site meeting with Congressman Crenshaw recently. Congressman Crenshaw, as was mentioned earlier, secured $3.5 million for this project, and then the balance of the cost of the project is funded by the 5 MUDs. That project is currently in preliminary engineering, and we should have a project ready to go to construction in probably less than 18 months. The second project that's underway is the Bear Branch Panther Branch drainage project. This is a computer model of those 2 streams to bring up the recent modeling, computer modeling, hydrology and hydraulics. Funding for that project is through the Water Development Board. There's a 0 interest loan, plus there's funds from 5 MUDs plus the Metro MUD help pay for that. The modeling is complete. The consultant has completed a cost estimate, delivered it to us. It was high. We've gone back to him to get a better explanation of why the costs are as high they are. And then we have a Teams meeting with Eric tomorrow afternoon to go over the results of that conversation. And then ultimately MUD 67 is kind of the lead on this project. And we will be presenting information on MUD 67 in the near future on options. What you have, what I handed out to you is a maintenance report that we give you on a monthly basis of things that our maintenance staff encounters at Bear Branch. Generally, there's somebody cutting the fence. There's somebody painting the dam. We even have on camera during the storm last week, 2 weeks ago, of kids wakeboarding flows. So there's a little of everything going on at Bear Branch Dam. We've even caught some kids out there and had the constable pull them into their office and have conversations with them and their parents. We do have no trespassing signs posted. Be happy to answer any questions about Bear Branch. Sounds like your husband is.
I have them most of the time, so his turn. I have a question. You sprayed herbicide along the roadways and spillway. What alternatives were used?
What alternatives?
Yes.
We do mow and we weed eat, but sometimes we have to do some weed control. Specifically, a water weed that is invasive. Salvinia and hyacinth. Is it hyacinth? Water hyacinth. Those are just two. There's probably about 5 or 6 that typically will show up in the waterways. And we encounter those both in our Highlands Division and Lake Conroe Division.
Asking for clarification.
And those are sprayed with licensed herbicide people. So, and we're also using, I think they're water-based chemicals.
All right. Thank you, Ed.
Yes.
Not your birthday?
No,
All right.
I can't even get close to Conroe.
All right. Item 14, attorney's report.
Nothing that's not separately listed on the agenda.
All right, item 17, election of officers of the board of directors. I could do it, but you're practiced at it. Why don't I let you do it?
So 17 through 22 will round out the new director-related items. So item 17, election of officers. So we have for Mud District president, vice president, secretary, and we generally have 2 assistant secretaries. We go through the process. We seek new directors to consider nominations for these different officer positions. The way it works is we open it up, each position one at a time for nomination. If there's one nomination and there's no additional ones, that we can take a vote by unanimous consent. If there are multiple nominations, then we will conduct a vote. It's up to the board whether it's a voice vote or hand vote, as opposed to the second alternative is ballots, and then we just basically tear up a sheet of paper and hand it around to folks and do it that way. Haven't had any of those this time. I've had it before, but not this go around. And then whoever has the most votes wins. If it's, less than 3 in favor of somebody, then we got to go through, the subsequent round, what have you. So those are the ground rules. With that, we'll go ahead and open it up for a nomination for president.
I'd like to nominate Dave Smith.
No, go ahead, please.
I'd like to nominate Dave Smith for president and trustee.
So we got for president, and then we have separate items for trustees. All right, so we have nomination for Dave for president. Do we have any other nominations for president? Okay, if not, do we have a vote by unanimous consent? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Abstain? Motion carries. All right, congratulations. Next item is vice president. So we do have a vacancy at vice president. We need a nomination for vice president. We have a nomination for vice
I'll
president.
nominate Tom.
Okay. A nomination for Tom as vice president. Tom, you accept the nomination?
I accept.
Do we have any other nominations for vice president? Not, do we have a vote by unanimous consent? All those in favor, signify by aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, next, secretary. Do we have a nomination for secretary? We have a vacancy there.
I'll nominate Wendy for secretary.
You accept the nomination.
Don't really know what the job description is, so I'm walking through fire here. If there's somebody else who's gonna take it, I'm being,
Job.
it's a tough job.
If you have to sign your name.
That's what everybody says, but then it ends up being so much more. I will accept.
Any other nominations for secretary? Okay, all those in favor, signify by aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Carries. Assistant secretary. Do recommend that we have 2 assistant secretary. Fred is currently assistant secretary. So Fred, if you're willing to continue to serve, that takes one of them off the board.
No objection. I'll accept it.
Okay. And do we have a nomination for a second assistant secretary?
Susanna.
Do you accept the nomination?
Yes.
Do we have all those in favor of the nomination? Signify by aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, that handles the nominations for officer positions.
But treasurer.
Well, that is part of it. Secretary.
Oh, it is. Oh,
Secretary
okay.
Treasurer. I use shorthand.
Okay.
Secretary.
Okay, so everybody's secretary treasurer.
I mean,
Lovely.
as a practical matter, Maureen is the accounting manager for the district and handles the financial matters. All right, next is to consider the appointment of trustee and alternates for Woodlands Water. I'm sure y'all, I know you are new, but you probably know that we have one trustee from each MUD. We also recommend that the MUDs have 2 alternates. First alternate attends in the event the primary trustee can't attend. Second alternate attends in the event the primary or the first alternate is unable to attend. Currently, let's see, trustee David Smith, first alternate. Fred Letterman, second alternate is vacant. Do we have a nomination for trustee?
I do nominate Dan.
Any other nominations for trustee? Not, all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Carries. First alternate. Do we have a nomination? Fred is currently the
Says no
first
objections,
alternate.
I'll continue, but if somebody would like the position, it's my pleasure.
Fred.
And Fred's willing to serve, so we don't need to take action there. First, the second alternate, we do need to take action. We have a vacancy for second alternate.
Nominate Tom.
Any other nominations?
It's yours.
You can decline a nomination. You decline? Okay.
I nominate Susanna.
Thank you.
You accept the nomination?
Yes.
Any other nominations for second alternate? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Carries. Congratulations. All right, next item is to approve the district registration form. That's an administrative form that's put together by the TCEQ. It lists who the directors are, what their officer positions are, what their terms of office are. Our office files that on behalf of all of our districts, but we do get board authorization to update that with our new board positions, terms of office, and both of y'all as new directors. We have a motion to authorize filing that form with the TCEQ.
Motion to file.
Motion, we have a second.
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. 20, preparation and maintenance of local government officers list. We have one. It includes all of the district directors as well as your investment officer, which is your GM and accounting manager. We have to update that now to reflect our 2 new directors. Purpose of the list is to be available for potential vendors of the district so that they can review the list to determine whether they have any potential conflicts with folks who are on the list and follow any necessary conflicts disclosure documents that they may need to follow. Do we have a motion to update the list to include our 2 new directors?
Make a motion.
We have a second.
You guys paying attention to me?
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. 21, training requirements for our new directors. There's a memo in y'all's packet about the Texas Open Meetings Act while we do agendas, hold meetings publicly, all that, as well as the Public Information Act. Default rule is the opposite of corporate world, which is all of our information is generally public unless there's a specific exception that makes it confidential. There are 2 one-hour videos that you need to watch online. It's on the Attorney General's website. The memo that is in your packet has the website for where you go to that website. It's on the Attorney General's site. Once you watch the videos, one for each training session, there will be a certificate of completion that you'll need to download or print out and give that to Shelley. Shelley keeps a file for each of our directors, and so she'll have that to be your evidence that you've completed that requirement. You got to do it within 90 days. I'm sure you'll get it done well in advance of that, but that's the deadline. No actions necessary on 21. And then finally, 22, conflicts disclosure requirements. There's also a memo in y'all's packet about conflicts. There's some check the box yes or no items. 99% of the time, we don't have any director conflicts, but on the off chance that you think there might be a unique factual scenario, visit with me offline. Those are very facts and circumstances specific, and we can talk about whether there's anything that would require there to be action on your part. No action is necessary on 22, and with that, David, I will hand it over to you, to conduct the remainder of the meeting.
So we're on
We're now on.
Justin,
23.
23.
Yes, sir.
Discuss the cost of the SFDUs for new development. Okay, Fred, this was your item. Would you like to lead the discussion?
Okay. Let's see here. I did have a pile of papers on that.
Page 61 in your packet.
Yeah, I put the supplemental paper. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. We had a lot of discussion on the number of SFDUEs. That is an older designation, which stands for single family. Don't tell me, single family.
Dwelling unit.
Yes, thank you very much. Okay, good. And I asked Eric to go through and update and confirm what the current status of both the number of SFDUEs that we own, the number of SFDUEs that we have sold to date, and how many remain, both for the freshwater and wastewater. And the reason I'm doing that is I'd like to have a benchmark. We kind of tongue-in-cheek refer to the last official document as the sixth and final, and I think that we've had 3 other renditions of it at least since that time. So I gave this to Eric to comment on, and I put his comments in red so we could see if there was any questions on it. In going to the discussion and observations, and you read through the numbers, they actually came directly from that meeting in July of 2023, and I took fairly detailed notes, and a presentation was made. I have a copy of that handout, and that's the information that you see here. I asked Eric to update that, which he did, and that's attached on page 63. So going in order, and it is markedly different than what the information that I put on page 61. And I guess the question to Eric is, what happened? What's changed?
To clarify, I did not do that. It was,
Oh.
it was your consultant, LJA, that did it.
Okay, thank you.
Does it for you. Yeah, I provided it.
LJA.
LJA.
Okay.
They're the ones that were here at the
Right.
meeting last month that presented page 63 to you.
Right.
And LJA stands for,
It's an engineering firm.
I understand that, but what's the full name of the firm?
That's a great question. I can't even remember it anymore.
I don't think they know.
Was
Nick Ladder.
Yeah, it's now just LJA.
Can you say that louder for the residents,
LJA Engineering.
for the full name?
That is
They
the,
dropped the,
Yeah.
they dropped the names. The-
Okay.
So they only go by the
Correct.
initials. Okay.
So the observations that I made is that some of the items on this report, this updated report that's on page 63, agree with the previous documents. That would be column or box number 1 to the far left. Box number 2 shows variances of between 23 and 263 SFDUEs. And that's comparing box 2 to box 3. Box 4, agree with 100%. And the calculations on the last box on the far right match the numbers using the third box and the second box, which is 75.7 and 95.7 and 94.1. It still does not address the questions that I asked, which were how many were sold, the price that they were sold, so we can make a determination on how we sell the remaining ones that we have. We need to know how many SFDUEs that we have available. And as a parenthetically, I'll say that that number changes every year based on developers' input on what type of structure they want to put there and how many SFDUEs that they'll need. Is that correct?
That's my understanding.
Okay, mine too, because I got it from you. So good. So the reason for bringing this up is we really do need a benchmark. So we could understand where the changes occur from period to period. And it just happened again between 9 months, 10 months ago to this report here, we still have variances. And I guess the question to you, Eric, is how do we proceed forward?
So last year we met behind the scenes, David and yourself, and myself, and the individuals that identify these numbers. And they explained kind of where they came from. So overall, I think what we would do is go back and identify the undeveloped properties that are in the district.
Okay.
That is essentially where the initial Sixth and Final accounting was born from.
Right.
And what you mentioned a minute ago is since then, I think Sixth and Final was completed in 2017.
Well back.
16 or 17. So just to give everybody some perspective, that was a line in the sand to identify a forecast to what all the MUDs were involved, to identify a forecast of what connection counts they would need to provide capacity to the undeveloped properties in that district all the way out to 2027. Is that right? So along the way, since then, there's changes in the crystal ball of what might go on those empty tracks. And that generally comes from Howard Hughes to identify, the market conditions, whatever the case.
We've had everything from churches to retail stores to multifamily.
And they won't know until it
Right, they
happens. They will never know until it actually happens, typically. Now, as an engineer, I used to do feasibilities on these all the time on undeveloped properties. And, you can make some educated guesses. That's what they've done. If it's a 10-acre tract right on the corner somewhere, just for instance, that's not going to be houses. That's probably going to be commercial. If it's 100 acres back up into the subdivision, it's probably going to be houses or an apartment or whatever. And so you can kind of do some, and that's kind of what they've done. They know their market better than anybody and know what could go on those properties. There's not a lot of properties. 100 and some odd connections is not very much. It's not going to go very far. What I suggested to Fred was maybe we graphically get the map of 46 and identify what those undeveloped properties are graphically. And then maybe we work together to just kind of talk about what could go there, talk to Howard Hughes again, and get those numbers updated.
The needs for the SFDUEs are secondary to knowing what we have authorization from the River Authority to sell and how many is left. If we know how many is left, whatever the forecast is by the developer, we can determine if we could satisfy it or not. Do we need more or not? And this report doesn't do that. So how would you suggest that we go about?
The report that we did last year did do that. And so that's something that probably, we could probably update that.
And this is the one we need, correct?
I don't recall, but I believe so.
Okay. So is that something that you could provide the board? Or do we have to go to LJ?
I mean, we can do something similar to what we did last year. If y'all are amenable to that, I'm happy to set that up for us. We can get the players in the room and kind of talk through that.
Yeah, I don't know I know what Fred's trying to accomplish, but there's two comments on, based upon the knowledge we gained 18 months ago, when we did this. When you mentioned that they've been paying taxes for all these years, right? So a lot of those properties have timber exemptions.
Mhm.
So there's a dramatic reduction in tax payment. That's just my comment that we didn't really look at that last time. It came up in the analysis that I did.
So on that note, one of the things that we did talk about was going back as far as we could to identify what the actual number was.
Right.
I don't know what that number is, but that number is available. We just need to dig it up, identify when that property started paying taxes in the district, identify what that number is historically, and then we'll know.
There's a lot of obviously historical records at the appraisal board.
We have something.
You have something.
Since we're at your tax.
Oh, that's right, your tax. And then the second comment is when we start talking about the value of those, we borrowed money, right, to pay for those. Didn't we? I think we have.
I have
roughly $500,000 that was borrowed to buy those SFDUs.
I can't remember off the top of my head. Different districts handled it different ways in terms of paying.
If you look at our budget,
issuing bonds.
there's two budget lines in our budget that appear every year. And they're basically a loan payment to the River Authority, once for freshwater, once for wastewater. So I think there's a basis to
I
understand.
have
the
all
cost of
11
capital.
contracts between the SJRA and MUD 46 dating back from 82. So I've got that to establish again, the stake in the ground. How did we get from there to here? And what we need, the missing part is how many do we own? How many is left? And what was the cost? If we have those three components factually documented, then we can take a real hard look. Here's what we paid. And if, by the way, if anybody on the board would like those documents, I have it both in hard copy and in electronic copy. Be more than happy to send it to you.
We're waiting on a budget should present us probably next month. They have those two line numbers. And I think at one point I got the projected cost of those payments out to the termination of bonds. I think it was the Sixth County. That was.
Yeah, and so we
That's how we
would need to go back and look, because districts had the River Authority issue bonds for different purposes.
Okay.
So a lot of times it was for new capacity, so it wasn't for necessarily Sixth and Final. I just can't recall.
Yeah, I'm making assumptions for
Yeah.
the purchase of the SFDUs from Sixth County.
Well, we can
but
run that.
I could be wrong.
We can run that.
The last contract was done September 1st of 2016. It's called the 11th Supplemental Agreement. And it addressed, it updated, supplemented the existing document, which went back to 82, which required me to read something I never wanted to read, the Article 8280-121 Vernon's annotated Texas civil statutes. Thank you for that, by the way. But I did go through it, and I do have all of the documents. But if we could simply get those 3 points that we asked for, this will all become invalid and history, and we can have a new stake in the ground going forward, knowing what's left, knowing what we bought. We have all the costs detailed here, and then we can determine what will the market bear. And like my proposal said here, we have a limited number left. And usually when there's a limited availability, it's supply and demand. If a lot of folks want it, well, that's your price. Make up a number, okay? If nobody wants it, then it's not an issue we have to deal with. So from where I sit.
Is the value of those SFDUs included in our budget?
No.
Our
The sale of them is not included.
but that is a value that we own, correct?
That is correct. That's why I have to have it stated how much we owned.
So Fred, I mean, the way you're thinking from a business perspective is absolutely right. I mean, it's what the market will bear. You have an asset, you want it, what does the market bear?
Mhm.
Exactly right. Now we gotta hop into government world. And,
That's been my problem, by the way.
Yeah, as we hop into government world, as you know, there's supposed to be a whole lot of additional strings attached. So
Yeah.
there's a whole section of the local government code, chapter 395, that deals with impact fees. And there's all kind of requirements for what can be included in an impact fee, what can't be included in an impact fee. You gotta get a consultant to prepare a capital improvement plan. There's a bunch of, as usual in government land, there's a whole bunch of steps that have to be gone through. If you're going.
I'll dive into that. If you could
Yeah.
send me the information and the references.
Yeah.
I will take care of finding what those regulations and requirements are.
Yeah.
So we will understand and we could provide data to the board to make a decision as to what makes sense. My stake in the ground was I took a look from the last, the 11th supplemental agreement to what real estate values were in the Woodlands, specifically in 77382, because it's the easiest way to track it, just to get a benchmark for what it is and how much it went up to this day. And it's rather substantial. So if the number happens to be, make up a number, 6,000, we're probably talking 12. If you play out what the expansion, I don't know what the government regulations are. If you can give them to me, I'll overlay it and I'll get back to the
There's
board.
consultants that do these reports for cities, and I know Connie mentioned she stepped out, her previous experience before being involved with the River Authority. So cities go through this process, MUD's not so much, but it's, there's consultants who prepare these things and you've got steps you have to go through. So, it's not the typical market, just what will the market bear? That's number one. Second point, I think it's probably low probability here, but I do think it's just important to put out there. If you have a non-taxable entity that's going to go on one of those tracks, whether it's a school, whether it's a church, whether it's a library, whatever, by law, for school districts, we cannot impose impact fees.
Understood.
So that's something that this whole analysis of potential for an impact fee is going to be dependent on who the ultimate.
Much like it's commercial versus residential and who pays for the connected to the SFDU. That's right.
Out there so that, there's not an expectation of, oh, every one of these, let's say there's 6 parcels, we can get X amount of dollars. Well, until you know what the use is, that's going to be somewhat of an unknown.
Have you been following the controversy in Southern Mud?
No, I have not, but it comes up. I mean, when churches, school districts, when folks try to get aggressive and charge impact fees, there can be conflict.
Yeah, in the mud world, it's not usually used very much. I've never seen it.
So moving on to the, unless anybody has any questions, I guess we're at the point where we can talk about the feedback from Eric. What's your feedback? Would you like to talk about that?
I can, sure. What would you?
It's page 61.
I'm sure y'all can read it, but so my comment, I guess about the impact fees and more to the point, the properties in question which are undeveloped. The suggestion was, well, if they're utilizing the utilities, there's a degradation of the utilities that they would or wouldn't be paying for or need to pay for. And just my response was kind of to that point is the undeveloped properties are not utilizing any utility. They've been paying taxes all these years, but they haven't been utilized. They're undeveloped. There's no lines there. So there's no flow going anywhere. That was my comment. And so whatever that number is, and I don't know what we'd have to look and see, because I did. Usually landowners are going to try to find ways to put some exemptions on it, whether it's timber or agriculture. Thank you. Agri-timber usually is the most common to drop down their carry cost until it gets developed. So I think we could identify what that number is pretty easily. It's going to take a little work on our side to try to get that. And then the question is, whenever that tract of land is ready to develop, then there's going to need to be a determination as to what public utilities would be needed to get to that property, right? And so in some cases, it may be zero, which means the utilities are already sitting there ready to go because it's intermixed in between existing utilities already. In that case, there's no cost for the developer or for the MUD. So in that case, when I say windfall, if that's the case where there's no additional debt or no additional infrastructure needed that would be public, then the resultant unimproved or improved in this case, once it's developed, tax revenues that come from that tract are just going to go straight to the district with no debt associated.
And no cost.
No debt. Right. Usually in development, a developer puts money forward to invest in the infrastructure necessary to serve them. And then once they create the tax base or the tax revenue with their improvement to create enough tax revenue to cover that debt, that's when you would start talking to them about getting reimbursed for their efforts to front the money to put the infrastructure in. But if there's not any needed, then that wouldn't even come into play. And the result would be you'd get all the tax revenue from the improved properties whenever it gets to them. So that was my comment there on that first page. I don't even remember.
Well, we're going to get to the proposal next because we just did that. Concerning the first proposal, obviously I have to get with Eric again and maybe that LJA to assist us in getting those 3 numbers that I requested. And I'll do that with you offline. The WWA to provide MUD 46 a copy of the contracts, or 11 of them, plus 2 supplemental documents. I won't burden you with the pre-82 stuff, but I got it. Eric and I discussed it before this meeting. It's available. If you text, email, or just tell me right now if you want it, I will email that to you. Just let me know. The SJRA to provide Mudboard 46 of the most recent price sale data. We don't have that yet. Is that something that we would get from you or we get from somebody in Ed's operation?
We'd probably have to talk to SJRA to identify, I don't know if there's been a.
No, there's a price that has, well, right, for purchases that have been made subsequent to the sixth and final accounting, the charge has been, as long as there was excess capacity in the system, the charge has been the same as what was the sixth and final accounting. Okay. By the way, there have been a couple, 2, maybe 3, I'm going off memory, smaller.
Would you be the person I contact to get that number?
It's the same number that's in the document.
Okay, fine.
Yeah,
So,
the last supplemental that the purchase from City Model,
right,
it's the same dollar amount per connection.
okay. So I will use that number then.
Yes.
And they recently sold some year and a half ago, December, at that price.
Yes.
At that
Yeah,
price.
there have been a few of those sales of, small amounts, but it's been at that same price.
Yeah, my knowledge, 46 has never sold any.
No, I'm talking about the River Authority selling additional that a MUD needed that was over and above the sixth and final.
Understand.
None of the MUDs have sold capacity to a developer for development or charged a developer for capacity or, any other user.
So I'm gonna have to research that and it has a next discussion date next month. I'd like to suggest postponing that until I can get the information and send it out to you. So let me just say this is gonna be to be determined. And that also brings up discuss and finalize SFDUE pricing for 2025. And I did that the following month meeting, and obviously that's being optimistic if I can't get the other data. So that's going to be determined too. Pardon me? Oh, 25. I should have been 24.
We can do it in a year.
Yeah, I think so. Fat fingers, typing a bad, that's it. We kind of discussed impact fees and the circumstances, but again, without having the baseline established, I suggest that we postpone that until we have the actual data. So that's it.
You want to go on to 25 since it's this seems to be your section.
I know we're kind of.
Time, right. Yeah, so what do we have to do? What do we have to do?
Let's see.
That's left on the,
Well, real quick, I can show you where that, where the GRP refund went in your line item. I think it's important for you to see for your own eyes that it actually came in. I've been showing other districts. So on page 6 of your packet, at the top in the revenue section, the other revenue, your share of that refund from Esther, that's 706,919.
Yeah.
That's where it went.
and then we had briefly discussing that. I guess we put that on next month's agenda or
Yeah.
discuss it when we do the budget.
Yes.
It's about the same.
Done.
That's all we have to cover.
So
One thing I need to cover. We have a drainage failure that is significant. It's a significant sinkhole that's along, what was the street name? It's just west of? Just west of Forest Gate. Forest Gate. So just west of Forest Gate, there's a north-south ditch that serves the community in that area. There is about, I don't know, we walked it up probably 4 or 5 houses up north of Woodlands Parkway. There is a significant sinkhole, which I have pictures of, that has caved in and basically taken down a resident's fence and caused a pretty significant sinkhole. We have, this is what you're looking at. It's a little hard to tell, or a little hard to understand what this is, but it's called a backslope interceptor pipe. And essentially that pipe in that picture or the opening of that pipe is at the top of bank of, or behind the top of the bank of a ditch, of the ditch in question. And that pipe is disintegrated and is common in, that's called a corrugated metal pipe. Pretty common at this age that they start disintegrating. When they do, there's obviously holes. Those holes allow soil to go in, and after a while, it caves in and gives away. So you can see, so in the third picture, there is a picture of a bunch of concrete. Well, that pipe goes from where you see it in the first picture, underneath this concrete to where all that sand is. It's buried now. So not only is it blocked, it's under the, it goes about in this direction from the first picture. Okay?
So do you think that segment is all that needs to be replaced, or you have to go?
Well, if you walk up the ditch, there's a bunch of these. Now, they're not caved in right now. So what we're gonna do, we have to fix this. And so we've gotten the initial estimate from a contractor. It's about $45,000. What I want to do is go up and have our ditch maintenance crews that we hire out to go up, and I can start to assess the conditioning of all the other ones in these on both sides. Because as you know, if you do one, just don't quote me to this number, but if you do one, it's 45. If you do 10, it's not 4 times 10. It may be a cheaper because you got bigger, a bigger project. We may have to do something bigger long-term, but right now we have to address this. So just want to make you all aware of it. We've got to move forward with it. And it's going to be roughly about $45,000.
You need a motion for that, or?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Who wants to make the motion?
I'll make
You
the
want
motion. To go forward and do the repair on the ditch,
On that one.
on that one ditch,
One ditch.
and to get quotes for the expansion for the other remaining 9. It is 9.
I'm
X number.
the rest of them.
Yeah.
We're actually, so this is not unique to y'all. This is happening in other parts of the woodlands where you have that older corrugated metal pipe. So we're gonna be doing that for a lot of the districts and putting it into a kind of a capital plan.
A second,
I'll second.
any discussion?
Question, have you let all the schools know, because they have cross-country runners and the triathlon groups in the woodlands, because a lot of them run on these trails, including one of my friend's daughters. Have you made the schools and the groups aware that this is going on? The sinkholes?
This is the only sinkhole I know of, and they
I know.
don't run on this. This
Okay.
is, and it's roped off with
Okay.
caution tape. So at least on this one, I don't think there's any need for that. But we can look and see. I don't know where the schools run.
Maybe once you find out if there's additional ones we need to
Right.
do, then we can look at more comprehensive.
So,
We did go up to the next 1 or 2, and we did identify that the pipe is disintegrating. There's no sinkhole yet, but it's inevitable.
you have an address for that, so, I mean, I can find it easily, but.
Yeah, I can
get, okay.
I don't have nothing. Yeah. The one that's
I
immediately.
can look at it,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, that's good. It was actually on the news because a dog got caught in there. The dog ended up coming out. All the rescue folks just walked away from it and finally it walked out when, yeah.
So we're gonna.
But we do have it flagged off and
We do.
do not enter. Okay.
Correct.
Any more discussion? Call for a vote, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstention? You got your authority.
We will get it done.
It's that hammer. It is,
I need motions.
Need a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second it.